Hello and welcome back to the Hyperspace My name is Sam, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, it's Mr. Michael Ghosh. Michael, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and today we're here back again to talk about The Bad Batch, and this time we'll be covering a breakdown of episode 10 called Common Ground. First of all, Michael, what do you think of this episode?
I think it was good. I think we had a few predictions of this episode being a quote unquote filler episode. I think it did stuff, but not it didn't drive the story forwards, and we were right about that. It slowed the pacing right down for the actual overall arcing plot. But I think it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. Not one of the best episodes, but I feel like all of the episodes in this show have been good and entertaining to watch at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was definitely we predicted last time that we'd have a filler episode in terms of an episode that doesn't further the plot forward much,
Mm.
either this episode or the next episode. And we were right. And this episode was great, and we did have some great action sequences that were some of the best of the show, especially towards the end. But yeah, it was a good episode, but certainly a filler which slowed the pace down. Getting right into it, we start on Raxus, which was the capital of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, which was some systems set up by Count Dooku. Basically, another way to call the separatists back then, where the Empire are starting their occupation. And straight away, Michael, it was like, looking at this, it was almost like two things came to mind. First of all, it was looking like almost like reminded me of like Nazi occupation
Mm.
kind of thing, and it also reminded me of the first film, Phantom Menace, on Naboo occupation vibes. What were your thoughts on this situation? Because we've experienced different sides of the empire where some people are celebrating that the empire are now on their planet, but it's a different situation on Raxus and they don't want them there.
I think one of the things I immediately thought of was I think I forget which episode it was, maybe 4 or 5, when they were on Pandora, and we see them cheering the end of the war, the Clone Wars, right? And we see like how happy the citizens are, and it's a big contrast to see this. I guess the thing you were saying is it's a very different situation in part. I think mainly that is because the Pandora was part of the Republic and at least had Republic bases on, as we saw in the Clone Wars, that was all being set up, and the senators for Pandora were in the Republic Senate. Whereas in this, we see a very different situation where it's a Confederacy of Independent Systems world, and not only separatist world, but the separatist world as such, like the capital. And yeah, it's a very different situation. I think you brought the Phantom Menace. I think that's a Naboo, the invasion of Naboo. I think that's an interesting comparison. It's somewhat similar with like tanks, rolling down the streets and stuff. And we see it in like a bit later, but the patrols and stuff constantly going up and down the streets. Like you said, like that's a very good comparison. I was thinking, I forget which planet. Is it Onderon? Onderon in the Clone Wars. It reminded me of that, which ironically was a separatist occupation of a world, and it reminded me of that a lot and the way that was dealt with, where they tried to get the government to back to legitimize the occupation, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's very very much like a we'll use you as a puppet and we'll keep the people safe sort of situation.
yeah, it's not like nice tactics, but as we saw, we had Senator Avi Singh. He originally was going to be like listen to the separatists, but either
Mm.
change or listen to the empire, but he had a change of heart and kind of inspired people to almost rebel or just not to take it. And you made a great comparison to Onderon here, and this again was also very similar. You had the rebels who are fighting. Admittedly, we didn't see the people like necessarily fighting; we just saw unrest. But your comparison is similar with the government, and the people were inspired to try and rebel
Mm.
against them because this wasn't right, and it was interesting seeing this side of the empire.
Yeah, I was really like, I think the thing that was going through my brain, which I don't know how to describe it, was we saw the clones there, and we only ever seen them as liberators of the people, really. You know,
Mm.
you can argue about you know, the way the Clone Wars was fought, but we've only ever seen them as the good guys liberating a separatist world where, you know, like we were talking about Onderon with Rex training up the rebels and Saw Gerrera, or you know, a number. We can name worlds for days, like Ryloth, another one I think is a good example. We can name worlds for days that the clones saved and, you know, freed from the separatists. So it's interesting to see, I guess, the other side, because the Empire was the Republic and is now not the Republic. But I think a lot of the prejudice and the hate from towards the CIS like continued, like from like not just from the clone perspective, even though they've had Order 66. I think a lot of that programming to be loyal to the Republic, I guess, and now the Empire, has like stopped them from, you know, being as humane as they would have been during the Clone Wars, let alone with Order 66 and stuff. And yeah, it's really hard seeing like all of these unpainted, just plain white clone troopers, and we see it on the vehicles as well. Like they're all like completely just gray, like, you know, gray beigey, just worn vehicles. Not There's no paint on them at all, which I
Yeah.
thought was a really interesting, you know, small detail. And it's quite hard to tell because of the lighting and stuff and the colors of the tank, but there's no paint on them.
Yeah, and it like for example in the clones, as you said, you had 501st, which had like blue on them, and then you had Cody's lot, the
The 212.
212, who have like
Yeah.
just in yellow, and we had loads of different
We had
battalions.
the Wolf Pack as well, was 114th.
Yeah, we had the Wolf Pack and they Grace. They all different, but here it's just they're all just
White
white,
generic.
white with black, and we know that they turn into the Stormtroopers eventually, who have a very similar color scheme. But it just shows that their color went and their personality went, and I think the lack of color also symbolizes the personality that's just been
Mm.
gone with
It's all
Order
very uniform.
66. Yeah, it's very uniform. It's very good soldiers follow orders.
Orders, yeah.
It's very like that. And the question I want to ask is: do you think we will see the stormtroopers in like the stormtrooper armor that we know in this show, or do you think it will continue to be the clone armor, and we won't see any of the stormtrooper?
Well, I don't think we've had any instances where we've seen a clone. Well, maybe at least I'm aware of any incidents where a clone has been wearing stormtrooper armor. But based on what is like said in the Ahsoka novel, she must have encountered stormtroopers who are wearing clone trooper armor, which means no, sorry, clones that were wearing stormtrooper armor. And so that this must be that it must exist that this is the case. But I think it's still going to be later on in the Bad Batch, because the Bad Batch has maybe taken a month, maybe or two.
Hmm.
Like, and like even the uniforms are the same. Like uh, uniform that I forget what her name is, was wearing,
Um,
the officer in the episode, Bad Batch episode, but she was wearing a Republic uniform, as far as I could tell.
hmm.
It was that coloring. It's not the gray. It was a sort of, you know, it wasn't that the Empire gray yet.
Yeah.
Very similar style, but it's not. It didn't look like an Empire uniform, which I think symbolizes it's going to take a while for them to change over. Even if they've changed tactics, they're not. That A lot of the tactics haven't changed that much, or the protocols we like kind of see with in Rebels. A lot of the stuff they do and the way they act is still the same way the clones would act because of their training and how the empire was organized. So I think, that the clones are going to last a bit longer than we thought, based on what was said by Rampart and Tarkin. And I don't know if they'll change the uniform, because I think Camino make the uniform, the clone trooper armor.
Yeah, I think
So I
that
think while they're producing the clones, they'll continue producing that armor.
it would make
Yeah, I don't know.
sense.
It might take a. It might. There may be a. They may start switching over, but I think that's going to take. That could happen in the show. But this is going to be like the multi-seasonal thing we kind of said about a lot of the things. We are like, oh, are we going to see this? It's if it's multi-seasonal, we'll see it at some point. But it's just we won't see it this. We're not going to see it this season unless they do some silly, like, I don't think they aren't doing time jumps at all. Really, they've done like a couple where it's been 2-3 days, but
Yeah,
this, like, the whole of the show has taken place over like the span of a month maximum,
yeah, no, I
if not
agree.
less. Which is why like Raxus was like only just starting to be occupied. Like it's only been a couple of weeks, and they've only just settled in. Like the Empire's only just settled into the planet, which is why they were being so harsh. And it's taken, like, in that span of time, it's taken them that long to get the senator on side. So you can kind of guess that it's not been that long. I think the Bad Batch is over about 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Yeah,
It's not very long. So I think I think there may well be a time jump between seasons. And if not, it's going to take us a very long, well, it's going to be 3-4 seasons before we get to the changeover. I think if not, well, it could happen sooner, but I think there's going to have to be a time jump. I think they might switch over, like, you know, after a year or something. So maybe a couple of seasons we'll see it.
yeah. That's if we get more than one
Well,
season.
what season? I'm assuming we're going to get one more season, because again, we see with this episode, and we'll talk about it when it happens. But it's all character development in this. It's a
Yeah,
lot of character development, relationship development, and then a lot of, like, I guess, world building. I want to
yeah,
say, like, a lot of the stuff we're talking about now is all the, small minutia of the world building they've done.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, like, we see.
It
And
is.
yeah,
It is interesting. It is certainly interesting. We then get when Senator Avi Singh, after giving that speech, gets arrested and taken to. I think it was a prison. I didn't really know. It was
I think
seemed to
he
be.
got put under house arrest.
Yeah, I think it might have been house arrest because
Mm.
they went to infiltrate it. The droid was like, "That's his best vase," and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think
So
it
they
was house or something. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was he was put under house arrest, and his droid calls Sid to help. And I'm not gonna lie, at first, if you're needing help, unless you have no one else, why are you going to call Sid? Because A, she'll
Yeah.
probably charge you an extortionate price. And B, surely you know someone who you can trust more than Sid.
I think, you know what, I'm going to say this. So far in the show, Sid has been very trustworthy, which
Mm.
surprises me. I think I said it initially. She reminds me a lot of Grief Karga, and it's not just because she has these, like, quippy lines like goggles, or what was it this episode, bandana. Right. And there's a lot of, just a bit of banter, which I really like about her character. And we'll have to see what happens, but I think she's more trustworthy than maybe she comes off as in the
Mm.
show. She does seem to, like, keep up her end of the bargain and, like, complete missions though, and, like, actually, deliver whatever it is the client wants. But yeah, I think you're right though. There's an element where how trustworthy is she, especially with this, because she'd make so much money off. First of all, she'd make money off if she if she freed him, the senator, and then if she freed him, she'd get the money off him and then just release him back
It's
and get
just,
the money from the empire.
yeah, it is.
And that's the sort of thing that I'd imagine that people would do, and she doesn't do for some reason.
No,
That would
that
make so much money as well.
she would make racks of that, which yeah, as you said, I'm surprised she doesn't do. We get the Bad Batch after a long discussion and an argument, saying they don't want to do it. They go to rescue the senator.
Yeah, and there's a funny scene with the more space popcorn, the Mantel mix,
Yeah, the
which
Mantel
which
mix.
I find funny because I think I looked it up and I think we joked in an episode. I bet they're going to put that at Galaxy's Edge. It already exists at Galaxy Edge, right?
Yeah.
It's Outposts mix or something like that. So they already have space popcorn in the Galaxy's Edge, so they're just advertising it, which I find really funny. And you see Echo grab some and then he starts sniffing it.
Yeah,
We don't.
I was gonna bring that up. It's so funny. You just see him and he's just like kind of looking at like, what is this?
He looks so curious when he's like sniffing it. He's not sure whether he likes it or not, and then you don't see him eat it. So I don't know what happened to that. We need to see like I want to see them to do a little mini episode or like an end credit scene where we see Echo eat some Mantel mix now.
Yeah, we need Echo food review channel. I
Oh
think
my gosh,
that's what we
that'd be
really want.
that's what we want. I think we just want more Echo, to be honest. And it's just such a
We,
weird that's such a weird thing to see, and it's a moment where they would easily cut it out. It's 10 seconds, doesn't change the length of the episode or whatever, but someone had to animate him grabbing it, like holding it and then sniffing it,
yeah,
right?
they thought into
It
this.
was thought into it, and it wasn't cut out of the episode either.
I love
Oh,
it.
it was just so funny. It is. That
Uh,
was yeah,
we love Echo, and
yeah.
as I said, the Bad Batch they go to rescue
Mm.
the senator, but leave Omega with Sid, as she's wanted by the bounty hunters. And to be honest, right, when this happened, the first thing I thought was, I think Sid will probably just turn her over to the Empire for money.
Mm.
And B, what I thought was, well, this is complete opposite end of the spectrum because I was thinking either that she'll turn him over to the Empire or the Bad Batch actually being really responsible. Because
Mm.
realistically, when you're wanted by the Empire, going on a mission to like to have to fight against the Empire on that mission isn't really a responsible thing to do. It doesn't really matter how much they fight. She'd get identified straight away and they'd call in reinforcements if they'd have identified her. So really, I actually think that this was I think this might have been a either she'd turn her over or it was just Hunter being responsible.
Yeah, I was. You know what? I think this made me draw parallels to the Mandalorian and how Baby Yoda's treated all the time.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it's just a one-off by the looks of it. But we'll have to see. But I think I'm pretty sure I predicted this was going to happen. That at some point, you just get left with Sid. I think
Yeah.
it's maybe when Sid was introduced or something. I might have said it. I think we might have said it. I can't remember. But yeah, I guess we were kind of expecting it to happen at some point. Just after she got a weapon, it became a bit less likely. But there you go.
Yeah, it's we did call it. So I mean we've called a lot of this show. I mean
Yeah.
we really have. But yeah, we then have the Bad Batch flying off and they meet up with a droid or with the droid who called them Taraxus, and straight away a lot of politics comes into it. We have Echo, who doesn't trust them. I think his politics became very abundant here. Like it was very clear that because of all the time fighting the separatists, he didn't trust someone who still worked for them, even though the separatists were were against the empire. They didn't want that occupation. Echo still was very against this idea of working with them, and he's one of those people that doesn't change their views. They're very stuck in their ways.
I think part of this is because he's a reg.
Mm. Yeah,
Like the other ones are a bit more willing to concede, but I think he's got this. I think he's a bit more. Again, they have the programming and the training, and they're like sort of they're told to like have respect for the Republic and love the Republic and everything.
mm.
Also, after everything that's happened to him and the Citadel and everything after that, you can't blame him.
Yeah. No, that is true. We also, it's interesting as well because not only do we have them not wanting, or Echo mainly not wanted to work with the Separatists, but we also have them not happy with working with a droid. They were like quite they couldn't believe it, and they were quite against it because I guess in Star Wars, droids are kind of like the slave class. They're like the bottom class. Like they're not allowed in some pubs and restaurants. I've like takes me back to A New Hope when
Mm,
they're like R2 and C3PO. No droids in here. See, they're not allowed in pubs, and they're basically the slave class. So it's an interesting.
mm,
This episode definitely brought up a lot of ideas on ideologies of who's coherently right, and whether two sides can work together. Because one of the things George Lucas wrote in I don't remember what movie it was for, but in a text scroll for one of the originals is there are good. I think it was there are good people on both sides, and I think this is abundant in this episode as we have discussions over class, and then we have about whose side is right and if they can actually work together.
it reminded me a little bit of the Clone Wars episode, which had Raxus on it, which was it Heroes on Both Sides,
Mm.
with where Ahsoka goes and then it visits goes to I think it was Raxus to go visit like a senator,
Yeah, yeah,
and it very much reminded me of that episode, a lot of the politics and stuff, and I think that was again a nice callback, and I think that this show again we kind of talked about last week. I think we can see it's clearly distinct from the Mandalorian now. It did to start off with be very similar, but even though it's got similar like format of like sometimes where it's like mission like go to like they go to their like the base planet Mantel, and then they go to Sid and they get a job and then they go and make money. But I think a lot of what happens in the episode is very much Clone Wars, or the
yeah,
feel of Clone Wars,
yeah.
not the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, I think, is very different, and I'd argue a bit more formulaic than this show in
Yeah,
some ways.
yeah. No, I can see that. No, I'd agree with that. We then we then cut back to Old Man Tao, where we have basically Omega having a sulk about not going on the mission, and it's easy to forget. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, this is annoying scene. Omega's becoming annoying," but she's literally a kid. Like
Mm,
she's a young kid. Young, to be fair, no, probably a child would probably sulk more than she actually has done on the show. And
mm.
of course, she wants to be involved, and she wants to be with her new family. And of course, she thinks she can protect herself. So I don't blame her for um, necessarily. I don't blame her for sulking, but she just needs to realize that they've done this to literally protect you. You're one of the most wanted people in the galaxy. You are literally worth so much money, and you're being looked after by someone who loves money, and they're literally protecting you. Even if Sid did like kind of slate her and just be like, if you were that important to them or something like that, you'd be on the
So
mission.
helpless. If you want that helpless, you
Yeah,
guys have you come along.
yeah, if you're that helpless, I mean, that's quite brutal, but
she, she even calls them laser brains, which makes it worse.
it is, it is, it's interesting, and it's kind of character development though, isn't it? We have Omega like having this because at first she enjoyed being on the mission, but she's quite scared. But now she's kind of like powerful, like she feels like she's powerful. She has a weapon, which, to be fair, she does bits with. She
Mm.
she like goes off
Just
with
now, yeah.
her little bow and arrow, which is sick. And the scenes of that in sick, and it just shows that she's so much of a stronger person now, having been with the Bad Batch.
Yeah, and I think it like this episode, you like you said, there's a lot of character development, character growth,
Mm,
and I think a lot of that's due to the fact this was, if this hadn't been a filler episode, as we call it. Although I always feel like calling the episodes the filler episodes kind of harsh, but if this filler episode has like done a lot, and it doesn't ever feel like it's just there to fill a gap.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't drive the plot forward so much as it drives the characters' development forwards in
Yeah.
this case. And I think this is, again, we kind of go back to it. This is why I'm so certain this must be a multi-seasonal, because they wouldn't do this. Like, even The Mandalorian didn't really do this. It did it a bit, but it didn't do it as much or as often. And I know there's less episodes of it, but The Mandalorian I thought was less like obviously with the success and everything, but I thought The Mandalorian feels less likely to need a second season, or to have like a warrant a second season, because they don't develop the characters nearly as much as we see in the Bad Batch. And I think that might be due to the episode length, the episode amount. We really do have these characters developed constantly.
Yeah.
We
they character development.
We either have character development, or like we see a lot of how the characters are. They're very like well characterized. Like this episode, we see like Tech, Hunter, Raka. They're all very well characterized in this episode. Like they all have moments.
Yeah, they
all of the cast do.
Yeah, they all have certain moments of character development, and you're right. It's harsh to call it filler, but yeah, as you mentioned earlier, this episode had a lot of world building, and at the same time, it had character development. For a lot of it was around Echo. I feel like he was one of the centerpieces of the episode, and a bit around Omega. We then have the Bad Batch. They infiltrate the building with the senator in, and they have these scenes with these grenades. And what? First of all, I came to, how do these grenades work? Right?
The droid poppers?
Yeah, they're droid. They're droid.
Yeah. They're 100%. They're droid poppers.
But how do they work on?
All right, you ready? You ready for my theory? I think they scramble the helmets.
Right. Okay.
And that's what it is. That's my theory. Is it like there's either that, or they're not droid poppers and they've been designed to shock people, or they are droid poppers that have been designed to shock people as well.
Yeah, because I was watching this infiltration scene, and I was like, how is this working? They're not droids. I guess it's probably a good theory with their helmet, but you see their whole body shock.
I think maybe they're droid poppers plus.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of extra sizzle in them.
Yeah, Echo's done some tech stuff.
Yeah.
And made them, like, scrambled clones now.
Yeah, extra spicy droid poppers. That's what they are.
Yeah, basically.
Clone poppers.
Clone poppers. There we go. We've got a new bit of Star Wars canon. But we have them trying to infiltrate the building. Meanwhile, Omega proves how good she is with strategy by helping Sid win a game of Dejurit. I can't say this game's name. Before we've started filming, I've been trying to say it, but it's the same. It's been in Star Wars for ages. It's in Force Awakens. It's in New Hope. It's in loads of Clone Wars. Dejurit, the game that Chewie gets very angry about, and we see that Omega's trying, basically just smokes these two, the two basically background characters now, who are just find themselves in every episode, that just are always at the bar. And it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Those two characters were actually in the final series of Clone Wars. They were two people that were released from prison in the arc with the Martez twins. And we see these two released from a cell in that episode. And now they've come back in the Bad Batch. I just think that is the coolest callback. Like,
that's hilarious.
Like, that's ridiculous thing, because they're not even like main characters. They don't really say anything.
You ready for me to be a bit cynical though?
Here we go. Go for it.
All right. Sorry, I gotta be cynical and say they save money on the animation models because they have them.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's not the entire reason, but they do save money on the animation models if they don't have to recycle them. They don't have to go and make new ones or update them. If
Yeah,
they're in season 7, that makes a lot of sense because I think a lot of the characters from season 7 have just come back.
yeah,
If they
no,
can bring them back, they will bring them back. I think, when we were speculating, I think we didn't really look at season 7 because I hadn't considered so much that they would take that many characters. The Martez twins, I thought we'd never see them again,
yeah, and then
to
they
be honest. I know a lot of people are hoping we'd never see them again. But there you go. But yeah, that's a cool callback, and I think they're quite funny, to be honest.
yeah, they
So
just
they
give
give
looks. They just give looks.
yeah, they
Funny.
don't say anything, but they give a lot of characters to the bar as well,
Yeah,
and to Sid. Like Sid's able to also interact with them as well.
yeah, and have like some banter with them, and yeah,
And she just banters with everyone.
she just like destroys everyone. But yeah, we have after they infiltrate the building, the Bad Batch get the senator and they accommodate an ATTE, but are shot at by another, which basically disables it, and they get in a firefight. And this episode was full of like ATTs. We see them at the start doing almost crowd control, and which is quite a big vehicle to need to do crowd
Crowd
control.
control. Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very again reminiscent of what we saw in Rebels. I don't think we've talked about Rebels in a little bit, so it reminded me a lot of how the occupation of Lothal is. Like
Yeah,
the difference, like I was saying, the difference is that people were like, as I think I said before, like it's interesting seeing it because people in Lothal are used to it, as that's just life. Whereas now, this is people who aren't used to it, and yeah, again, the Ahsoka novel is very good in showing what it's like to be on a planet as soon as it's occupied by the Empire, and like how they do things in a certain way to basically break people,
yeah,
like because they know how to break in people to make them just give up and not rebel. I know the rebellion exists, but considering how many worlds they occupy and the fact that they are that outnumbered and that's in desperate need for people. Like Rogue One is set just before basically the rebellion outbreaks properly.
mm,
Is a serious threat. And even then you see they're struggling for people, they're struggling for ships. They don't want to do things because they're not willing to risk it yet.
yeah.
And it's been 25 years. Like Saw Gerrera was in the rebellion for 25 years.
It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, it just shows you how well the Empire really did when you consider that.
mm,
Like you said, they are way too big vehicles, but as the thing about the fact they replaced them with the 80 just because it's less practical. It's probably a worse design because
yeah.
it's too tall to actually fight at warfare. But what it does do is scare the living crap out of you when you see it walking down the street because of how tall they are, right?
Or in
Because they're
this.
taller. Yeah, because we're in the snow, but they're taller than any of the buildings in. They would have been taller or as tall as most of the buildings on Raxus.
Yeah,
Whereas yeah,
I saw it's like in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which I played all of, and they had the 8080s at that point, and it's like you literally have uh these massive vehicles which are literally bigger than they're bigger than the buildings. Like that's not practical. Like there are probably
no,
streets that the ATTE could go down that an AT-80 can't because they're too big. And for holding a world, apart from inspiring fear,
they're
there's
not
it's
good.
not practical.
There's no strategic value in using AT-80s, and the other thing is I think what is it the ATTs were able to be refitted and have different serve different functions or be multi-purpose. Like we see in the Clone Wars, they used as troop transports almost.
Yeah.
To bring back wounds and stuff because you can just put people on the back of them, not just in them, but sit on them. Right? You could not do that with an AT-AT,
Yeah.
and I think that's where we see this constantly. I'm sure we talked about it when we talked about how, yeah, we did talk about when we talked about how the clones and the stormtroopers make sense of their relative period. The stormtroopers make sense because they do not need a good army; they just need a load of people. They just need boots on the ground, right? They just need an occupying force that doesn't need to fight a war because people are too scared to fight one. And if they are, they're just suppressing rebels and like insurgents rather than fighting an actual, like the Clone Wars war. Because that like the rebellion isn't like that. Or the Galactic Civil War is never like that at any point we see. The closest we see is Hoth, and even that, because the Empire have these vehicles, they're already outmatched despite the fact that these vehicles are just completely impractical.
Yeah, no, it is. It's true. It is just completely unpractical. It did take me back though, having the ATTs
Mm.
back to the episode in Clone Wars where I think it was the one where Rex gets shot and spends it with the trooper who we saw in the show. I've forgotten his
Oh,
name.
Cutler Quane.
Yeah, Cutler Quane, and it's like they're one of the ATTs get destroyed, I think, but then a tank fires a rocket at an ATTE, and they basically give an instruction like port side or something like that, and it just shoots it dead on, and it just explodes in midair, and it's just the most badass scene ever. And it just took me back to that because we saw the ATTs throughout Clone Wars, and they do get exposed quite a lot because of how slow they are, but they're just quite iconic, and it's cool to have them back. Um, Another question. So we had the question earlier about the droid pumpers.
Mm.
Is the other question, and I think I have the answer, is um, they have a big fight with the around the ATTEs, and and to fight them they're using stuns, and I was like, why? Because they haven't used stuns like throughout the show. They've used them several times, but
Yeah.
I think the answer is because they're on a world and they don't want to cause damage. Would that be the reason they're using stuns? Because I was
What
wondering,
stun grenades, or do you mean like they're blasters on
shoot it
stun?
lasting on stun.
I think it's because they realized they could. I don't know. I was thinking this that the entire show they've been just destroying people. I think maybe stun is quieter.
Yeah,
That might like I wonder if that's the reason, or if they do just not want to kill any more of their brothers than they have to.
yeah.
Um, I think also maybe because they're prepared for it. They're aware they're going to be fighting clones,
Mm,
and they're a
yeah.
bit more. But like you said, it could well be blast damage on buildings. It could be something as simple as that.
Yeah, I was watching and I was like, as you said, throughout the Clone Wars, they've not really cared. They've just kind of shot people. Well, they probably cared, but they've just shot people anyway. And now it's on stun. So I wasn't sure why they're doing that. But that's a plot. They escape using a secret passageway, and we have a bit where the senator doesn't want to leave his people, and we get there's a few iconic phrases with Clone Wars,
Yeah.
and
I
one of
think this is the one.
one of them is good soldiers follow orders, but the the another massive one is live to fight another day, and we have the return of it. We have the one in the arc with Ponkrell where he puts
Yeah, yeah.
a rocket into the thing and the massive control ship blows up. I forgot that clone's name, but we have that, and that's a really sad moment.
Oh
And
God, I can't remember his name either.
it's
Hard case. Hard case.
case, yeah, and
Yeah.
it was great. So that was a sad episode. But we have the phrase "return," and it. To
But
be honest, separatist or not, he seems like a good senator. Like he actually seems like he has a moral compass and actually
but
doesn't mess with people.
I was just saying, we'll go back to the phrase. I think was it Heavy said that as well in Rookies, and that's a really big callback to Domino Squad.
Yeah, that is massive. That is,
Like that's beginning. That's like beginning of the Clone Wars. But yeah, um, yeah, he seems like a decent man. Like he really does care about his people, and I think he realizes he has to leave because there is literally nothing he can do on his own planet.
no,
Like there's not unless he wants to do a Saw Gerrera, which he's not going to do.
yeah,
There isn't even Saw Gerrera leaves Onderon, right?
yeah,
That is
exactly.
starting to try and leave Onderon. So yeah,
It is um You're certainly right. There's nothing he can do. Like, he has to leave, otherwise he'll probably just get captured again, and he's not going to do much for a prison cell. So yeah, he does have to leave. We then return to Ord Mental, where Omega pays off all the Bad Batch's debt by playing Dejerick. I'm not going to say it again because I can't really say it, but so basically by gambling, and because of her like strategy and because she's been with the Kaminoans that we have, she just has so much enhanced strategy, so she becomes really good at this game. And so I think having seen this, I think that what we now know is in the last 4 episodes, we're going to deal with the problem that Omega's addicted to gambling, and we're going to really go through this plot. And the finale is actually going to be all about how Omega stops her gambling because she's a gambling addict now.
She goes to rehab. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see her in gambling rehab.
Maybe that's why the Kaminoans want her, because they know that she's
got a problem.
She's got a gambling problem, so they're trying to bring her back, and maybe that's the rehab. They're taking her to rehab on a
Maybe.
But
maybe. We talk about the gambling stuff. This is a bit of a tangent, but Sabak? Sabak
yeah,
from
Sabak.
the game that I was hoping we'd see is Pazak, which is from KOTOR, which is kind of like blackjack, but you have your own deck of 6 cards, and then you're given cards randomly. I would love to see that come back. That was a fun game, and you could play in KOTOR. It's a complete tangent, but yeah, KOTOR was good, and that was a good gambling game. I'd love to see that come back in somehow, but unfortunately, I think it's just been decanonized because of first of all, the fact that everyone just thinks I think it's confusing Sabak and Pazak.
Yeah.
But there you go. I think also the fact that it's so prominent in Star Wars Sabak with Han Solo winning the Millennium Falcon, they're not going to bring Pazak back. But I'd love to see it. We'll bring more of these gambling games for us.
We can't increase Omega's addiction though.
She'll start playing Pazak, and then she'll then have like an addiction to collecting the cards as well.
Oh,
and we'll see her on, was it My Strange Addiction?
Yeah, we finally know how the season's going to be ended. It's Omega in rehab, and then they'll just cut it. It'll be 1 season long, and it's all about Omega in rehab. But it finishes with a game versus Hunter, and if she wins, she doesn't have to sit out on missions. And this raised, I think, the question of the series. We have, who is Omega? Irrelevant. What is Omega's powers? Irrelevant. All of the questions that have been raised this season are now relevant. The question is, who won in the game between Hunter and Omega?
Right, we're now being part of the problem. You see, gambling on betting on who would have won. You know what? 100%, it's Omega. It's 100%. It's 100% Omega, and Hunter's deliberately either he's deliberately doing it to test her, or I think he's not going to go easy on her, but I almost think if she was losing, he would deliberately make a bad move at this point.
Yeah.
Because I think even if he's also very good tactically, so I think it'd be a close game, but I think Omega would win. But even if not, I think Hunter would, if it's towards the end of the game, would make a stupid move. Just one that was slightly stupid, just so she'd win, so she would be on the missions again. Because that's why he's willing to do it, because he's willing to have her on missions, not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
deliberately done it.
I think Omega will win to further the plot forward.
Yeah, that as well. I think she'd win anyways, but I feel like if she wasn't winning, Hunter will just let her win, even if it's just even if it's a close game.
Yeah, no, most likely. I think that wraps up our discussion on Bad Batch episode 10 called Common Ground. Thank you for watching this episode. Thank you, Michael, for joining me.
Thank you for having me again.
All good. And yeah, as always, like, subscribe, comment. Comment what you think Omega's going to do about a gambling addiction. And we'll see you later. And as always, may the Force be with you.